Chapter 331. The Emperor 4. Of course, it was a lie that nothing had happened. The Emperor, who should have been omnipotent within that world of the mind, had discovered that he wasn't so almighty in front of Eugene. The Emperor had desperately tried to escape, but once he had been caught within Eugene's grasp, escape was impossible. To put up some kind of resistance, he had proceeded to attack Eugene, but no matter what type of attack was thrown at Eugene, it disappeared the moment it touched him. The same went for any attempts at defense. Whether it was thickly constructed walls or a barrier covering his entire body, they vanished without any effect the moment Eugene's fist touched them. In the end, the Emperor was left with no choice but to be beaten into a pulp by Eugene. From Eugene's point of view, the beating wasn't all that severe, but for someone born into the royal family and ascended to the throne, a beating was something alien that he had never experienced in his life. What a cowardly bastard, Eugene thought with a sneer. Whenever Eugene boxed him around the ears, the Emperor would screech so loud it was like he was trying to rip apart his own throat, and after Eugene struck him with his fist a few times, the Emperor screamed like it was the end of the world. After beating the Emperor like this for quite some time, Eugene ordered the Emperor to get down on his knees. The not-so-omnipotent Emperor immediately knelt down as instructed. As the Emperor of Kiel, Strahd II was by no means a fool. He had just been subjected to a long-lasting beating in this world of consciousness. Though in fact it hadn't really been all that bad, but to the Emperor after that series of painful assaults, it had felt like his mind was on the verge of collapse. So should he seek revenge? It wasn't like he didn't have the means to do so. He might be powerless in this world of the mind, but in reality Strahd II was still the Emperor of Kiel. With such power, there were many methods that he could use to attempt his revenge. So what if Eugene Lionheart hadn't committed any crime? Was there truly anyone in this world who didn't have some dirt on them tucked away somewhere? And in the first place, even without any proof, leveraging the charges of treason and lèse-majesté would be enough to turn the entire Lionheart clan into traitors. However, there was no way that he could do that. As the Emperor, Strahd II, could feel it in his bones that it would be impossible to do so. This was because of Eugene Lionheart's true identity. The stupid Hamel, one of the heroes from 300 years ago. Seeing how Eugene had managed to keep it a secret for so long, it didn't seem like Eugene had any intention of revealing the truth to the world. But, if his entire clan were to be charged as traitors and were about to be executed by the Empire, he would definitely be forced to reveal his true identity to deal with the situation. No, he doesn't even need to do that, the Emperor realized now as he stared at Eugene while swallowing back a gulp. He still couldn't dare to look Eugene in the eye. It was bizarre. His real-life body wasn't the one that had been so beaten up, but just by looking into those golden eyes, the Emperor felt his whole body was racked with pain. The Emperor thought fearfully, even without revealing his true identity to everyone. I'm sure there are enough people who already know the truth. The wise Sienna and the brave Molen. Those two must be aware that Eugene Lionheart was their old friend. After all, wasn't that the case back at the night march? The brave Molen, who had suddenly reappeared, had stuck close to Eugene Lionheart's side while showing off their friendship. There was also how the wise Sienna, who had returned from her long seclusion, had left Aroth and settled down at the Lionheart estate. Neither the Emperor nor Kiel could afford to force Eugene and the Lionheart clan into being declared traitors. The moment they did so, those two monster-like individuals who were beyond the Empire's capability to handle would become their enemies. The opinions of all the other countries neighboring the Empire, no, even the opinions of the citizens of the Empire itself, would be unsympathetic to the Emperor's resulting plight. The Emperor let out a long sigh and shook his head. His initial intention had been to investigate the thoughts hidden within Eugene's heart, and if he felt that Eugene was a threat, the Emperor would have placed shackles on him. He had managed to peer into Eugene's heart like he had planned, but now, he would have preferred to have remained ignorant. The various secrets that he had learned were now burdening the Emperor and causing him fear. In the end, this meant that a war with Helmuth and its demon kings would inevitably be declared within this era. Is it all right if I go back on my own? Eugene spoke up. The Dark brothers were still lying collapsed at his feet. In fact, the two of them had already come back to their senses. However, due to their embarrassment and shame at being trounced, they dared not get up and silently pretended to still be unconscious. Their shattered limbs ached, but they still felt that remaining prone like this was better than struggling to get to their feet where the Emperor could see them. Aware of this, Eugene commented, "After all, with those kinds of wounds, it's important for these two to receive treatment quickly. If I stay sitting here, these twin captains will have to keep on enduring their pain, you know?" Carrion and Derry still maintained their silence. "Not only can you not fight, you can't even pretend to be unconscious convincingly," Eugene mocked with a snort. Even faced with such a provocation, the twins refused to show any reaction and kept their mouths shut. "Very well then," the Emperor eventually spoke up after sighing deeply. "Lord Lionheart, it would be best for you to return home now. It has been a pleasant conversation," Eugene said with a smile as he rose from his seat. After all, it was true that they had had an actual conversation following the beating that Eugene had given the Emperor. Though the conversation hadn't covered anything too important. Eugene had just told Strahd what to do from now on. Don't say anything unnecessary and try to behave more tactfully no matter what happens. And instead of pointlessly trying to pick a fight with Eugene, just don't pay him or his actions any attention. This wasn't just a one-sided demand on Eugene's part, as in return for doing all that, Eugene also promised to be careful not to damage the Emperor or the Empire's reputation from now on. For example, whenever he did something in the future, especially if he got caught up in some unsavory incident outside the Empire. In such rare cases, he had promised to give the Emperor a heads up. Although he felt like Eugene was going too far in saying such things to the Emperor of the Kiel Empire, the Emperor still gratefully gave his agreement. Closing his weary and depressed eyes, the Emperor said, "Lord Alcester, please guide Lord Eugene to the exit." "What about you, Your Majesty?" Alcester asked in a worried tone. The Emperor began, "We will." Before he could finish, Eugene suggested, "You appear to be very tired, so why don't we head out together, Your Majesty?" We will." "Very well, we shall do so." After some hesitation, the Emperor gave in and rose from his chair. Finding it difficult to understand this perplexing situation, Alcester checked the Emperor's expression. What on earth happened in there? Alcester thought to himself curiously but didn't voice the question out loud. Tactfully keeping one's silence according to the situation was an essential virtue all royal guards must possess. So Alcester quietly kept his lips shut as he moved to support the Emperor. "Allow me to assist you as well," Eugene offered as he grabbed one of the arms of the staggering Emperor. The moment his arm was grasped, the Emperor tried to twist his body free in terror, but Eugene held on tightly to the Emperor's arm, refusing to let go as if he had been expecting this struggle. "Are you all right?" Eugene asked calmly. The Emperor stammered, "We are fine." "In that case, let's head on out," Eugene said with a smile. In his heart, the Emperor wanted to order Eugene to let go of him, but the words just wouldn't come out. In the end, the Emperor left the room, supported on both sides by Alcester and Eugene. It was just as Eugene had guessed. This room was in a basement deep beneath a tower a short distance from the Imperial Palace itself. "Your Majesty." Dozens of royal guards were waiting on the surface as Eugene arrived on the ground floor. They were probably the knights the Emperor had arranged to guard this location before entering the room. "There's no way he'll dare to give them the order to capture me at this point, right?" Eugene thought as he shot a glance at the Emperor. At that moment, Eugene and the Emperor's eyes met. Eugene silently cursed, "This son of a bitch." The Emperor seemed to have the same thought right as Eugene was feeling paranoid. Eugene secretly pinched the arm he was holding on to support the Emperor. When he did so, the Emperor's whole body trembled in fear once more. We're all right. Everyone should back away. We are merely receiving assistance because we are feeling slightly tired." The Emperor quickly reassured his knights before turning to look at Eugene. "Sir Eugene. Today's conversation was delightful." "Oh, that's right. Sir Bolt. You have a close relationship with Sir Eugene, don't you? In that case, please escort Lord Eugene to the gates." Among the knights stationed outside the tower was the captain of the 4th Division, the one who had been defeated by Eugene during the previous friendly match. His name was Ebolt Magius. He appeared extremely flustered to be suddenly picked out of the crowd for this duty by the Emperor, but since it was the Emperor's will, he merely bowed his head without showing any resistance. "I hope you have a peaceful night, Your Majesty," Eugene said in farewell. "Well then, I will come over to see you again tomorrow, along with Lady Sienna." The Emperor flinched. "All right." Eugene released the Emperor's arm. After taking a few steps back, he got down onto one knee and bowed his head deeply. What had happened in the room earlier and what was going on now were two entirely different matters. And since there were so many eyes looking at them, Eugene was forced to show sufficient politeness. This abominable monster, the Emperor silently cursed. Why hadn't that room's powers worked on Eugene? Was it because of his Lionheart blood? Or because he was the stupid Hamel? There was no way to tell. The Emperor didn't want to keep thinking about it either. So stiffening his trembling expression, the Emperor turned and left. The sound of footsteps receded into the distance as the knights guarding their surroundings also withdrew along with the Emperor. It was only then that Eugene raised his head and looked up. Beneath this tower, whose door had been locked tight, lay a room left behind by Vermouth that was similar to the darkroom in the basement of the Lionheart estate. I thought there'd be something else, Eugene thought regretfully. Even though he had secretly hoped for it, a phantom of Vermouth hadn't appeared like it had in the darkroom. Was it because I was together with the Emperor? If I head in there alone next time, will something appear? Although he had this thought, Eugene didn't get his hopes up. The darkroom at the estate was different from the Emperor's room here. What reason could there be to leave two separate phantoms behind? Like the Emperor had said, this room was a gift Vermouth had bestowed upon the Kiel Empire. Eugene could even guess what Vermouth's reasons for doing so were. Vermouth had been planning for Eugene, or rather Hamel's reincarnation. This meant that he knew, approximately 300 years after Hamel's death, Eugene would be reincarnated as a member of the Lionheart clan, one of Vermouth's descendants. The Lionheart clan would need to survive for that long to ensure this would happen. By gifting this room to the imperial family, Vermouth must have guaranteed an oath of loyalty that guaranteed the Lionheart clan would never become an enemy of the Kiel Empire. Although it doesn't seem like we'll be able to find anything, I should bring Sienna here with me tomorrow to check, Eugene decided as he turned away from the tower. It's been a long time, Lord Ebolt, Eugene politely greeted the knight. That's right, it's been so long, Ebolt responded with a wry smile as he nodded at Eugene. Ebolt sensed the faint smell of blood coming from Eugene's body, and he noticed that some blood had spattered onto Eugene's sleeve. Noticing his gaze, Eugene reassured him, there's no need to pay any attention to that. It's not my blood. Ebolt asked hesitantly, if it's not your blood then? It's the blood of the Lord's Dark, Eugene readily admitted. Really now, those two seem to have quite a lot of grievances with me, but I have neatly put an end to them with this duel. Ebolt was shocked. It can't be, did you actually kill them? Eugene defended himself. Hey, as if I would do something like that. Even if it was a serious duel, how could I kill a royal guard right before His Majesty's eyes? I just beat them up in moderation, while making sure to put on an entertaining show for the Emperor. Shaking his head in pity, Eugene began walking off. So what Eugene meant to say was that a duel with the captains of the 1st and 2nd divisions of the White Dragon Knights was just at the level of being a sideshow? Ebolt, who had been left standing there staring blankly into space, belatedly came to his senses and let out a depressed laugh. Since Eugene had been summoned by the Emperor out of the blue and suddenly escorted to the palace, it was only natural that Gilead and the other family members were worried about Eugene. It wasn't anything big, Eugene reassured him. Eugene only managed to get his family, who had come looking for him with worried expressions on their faces, to withdraw after repeating those words over and over again. But the real problem wasn't with his family members. How can the Emperor of the Kiel Empire be so narrow-minded? Even the Pope of Eurus wouldn't dare to oppress us in such a way. After hearing the whole story from Eugene, Christina and Anise took turns venting their rage. That damn bastard, Sienna cursed. With her staff pulled out of storage and held tightly in her hands, it looked as if Sienna might storm over to Kiel's imperial palace at any moment. Why are you still like this even though you've gotten older? Eugene asked in exasperation as he hastily pulled the staff out of Sienna's hands. Although he hadn't given it much thought before saying those words. Sienna's eyes widened in shock as she turned to look at Eugene. Did you just call me old to my face? Sienna cried out with a heartbroken expression. Anise and Christina were immediately aware of what kind of position they should take in this situation. Hamel, your words are going way too far. No matter how old Lady Sienna may be, if you were to say it so bluntly, of course, it would hurt her greatly, Sir Eugene. The two of them pretended to be on Sienna's side even as they stabbed the dagger deeper into her chest. Sienna staggered slightly before plopping down into a chair with Mare's support. Mare tried to defend Sienna, Physical age isn't important. What's really important is your mental. Anise cut her short. But of course you would think that. Mare, you're just saying something like that because you've also been around for the past 200 years. Mare was taken aback. And not at all. I really was created based on Lady Sienna's childhood. So even though I've been in existence for 200 years, my mental age is actually... Anise interrupted again. That's quite the convenient setting you've established for yourself. Isn't that right, Christina? Yes, Lady Anise. Though as a 23-year-old, I'm afraid I don't know much about such topics, Christina replied with a smile. Anise, who had been preparing to take another turn at going on the offensive, faltered and froze up instead. She realized that the dagger hidden behind Christina's clever wordplay was not only targeting Sienna and Mare but herself as well. There was an ominous silence in the room as they felt like they were all walking on thin ice. Eugene, who had been keeping his mouth shut, spoke up after a few moments of glancing around the room. In any case, Sienna, you should also accompany me to the Imperial Palace tomorrow. Sienna, who had been drooping in her seat, perked up and asked, Are we going to topple the Imperial Palace? Within his cloak, W hummed and Tempest roused himself to ask, Hamel, have you finally decided to become the Emperor yourself? When was it again? While saying that he would need troops for their expedition to the north, Tempest had once asked Eugene if he would be willing to become the Emperor himself. Stop with the bullshit, Eugene denied with a snort. Naturally, Eugene had no intention of becoming the Emperor, and he had no intention of toppling the Imperial Palace either. To enter the Lionheart's darkroom, one needed to be of the Lionheart bloodline. But as for that underground room beneath the tower near the palace, while only the Emperor's will could activate the power there, anyone could enter the room itself. Don't set your expectations too high, Sienna said as she narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. Even 300 years ago, it was impossible for me to see through Vermouth's magic. Though I later attempted to do some research on it in Arath, even then I still couldn't get any results. So now, even after getting my chest pierced through by Vermouth, I still don't know the true nature of the magic that he used to do so. Eugene said, But we're assuming it's ancient magic, right? That's just one of the possibilities we're left with since we're unable to identify its true origins. As I've said earlier, many mysterious things exist about the ancient era. That era was in such a distant past that even the myths haven't been able to fully transmit what happened back then. Not even the dragons can tell us what that era was like, Sienna grumbled in a low voice as she glanced at Christina. What we know is that it was an era where myths and legends walked the earth. The era when the god of light himself was physically manifested. Our Lord has given us no answers either, Anise contributed. If that's the case, then the only ones who would be able to tell us for sure what happened in that era would be the Demon Kings, Sienna surmised. Eugene changed the subject. So, are you coming with me tomorrow? I suppose I should go, Sienna said as she pouted her lips. Even if there aren't any results, I should at least try to find something, right? You never know. If we dig deep enough, we might just find a secret left by Vermouth. Sienna wasn't being serious when she said this. Like Eugene, Sienna didn't really expect that Vermouth would have left any messages for them in that room next to the palace. Vermouth didn't seem to want his former comrades to come looking for him. Chapter 332, The Palace 1. The Queen of the Night Demons, Norgiabella, stood resplendent in a seductive dress that left her collarbone, shoulders and back bare. Her laughter rang out like tinkling bells. For a noble of her stature, the dress was scandalously revealing. Yet naturally Noir bore it with audacity. In fact, she found it regrettable that there were fewer guests to admire her exquisite form. A bit disappointing, Noir murmured, lowering her colorful sunglasses to the bridge of her nose. What do you find disappointing? Asked Gavid, standing nearby in a meticulously tailored tuxedo. Under normal circumstances he might have criticized Noir's lack of decorum. However, his mind was elsewhere. Gavid was uncharacteristically tense, anxious, excited and fluttering with anticipation. Don't ask such an obvious question, Gavid. You're thinking the same thing, aren't you? I have no idea what you're talking about. Right here, Noir replied, her lips curving into a subtle smile. A tantalizing breath escaped each time those lightly tinted lips parted. Excitement and anticipation also throbbed within Noir. This emotion heated her body, especially her chest, and the succubus who had lived for a long time emitted dark power faithful to her feelings. Any ordinary demon who was faced with Noir in her current state would not only struggle to control their raw desire but struggle to even breathe. Of course, Gavid was different. Regardless of how potent and overwhelming Noir's magic was, he wasn't focused on her, though his gaze remained on her. His hand grazed the hilt of the demonic sword Glory strapped to his waist as he remained silent. How many years has it been? Several decades? No, almost 100, right? Asked Noir. 97 years, Gavid promptly answered. To be precise, 97 years and 134 days. Almost 100 then, isn't it? It's been a very, very long time. Given this, it was inevitable that Noir would feel nervous and excited. She wore a deep smile while pressing a hand against her fluttering heart. That's why I feel disappointed. 100-year interval isn't a significant amount of time for us demons, but today is very special, isn't it? If it were me, said Noir. Be careful with your words, Duke Giabella, Gavid interrupted her immediately. If it were me? You sound as if you covet the throne. Oh, please don't overreact, Gavid. I'm just saying it casually. It's not like I'm seriously eyeing the Demon King's throne. Noir shot Gavid a sidelong glance, her smile fading slightly. But his expression remained utterly grave. He was a stern man who rarely appreciated jokes, and when it came to matters of the Demon King, he took them far too seriously. I'm just saying, if it were me, I would have done it bigger. Much grander. Since it's been almost 100 years since the throne's door was opened. I would have invited numerous guests, summoned the press, and even called envoys from other nations. I would have thrown a grand party, said Noir. Such words hold no merit, Gavid muttered, a smile absent from his face. He no longer wanted to engage with Noir, so he turned his gaze away. Such a dull and humorless being, Noir chuckled while observing Gavid's retreating form. How could one serve the obsolete Demon King so loyally yet be so narrow-minded? Well, he'd been this way for centuries. Ever since he was chosen by the Demon King of Incarceration to be the Blade, Gavid had devoted everything to the Demon King, adhering only to his will. That's why you're blind, Noir thought, a smug satisfaction filling her chest. She tasted a sweet victory tinged with a bittersweet longing as she licked her lips. Ah, my Hamel. My unforgettable first love. You know nothing, Gavid Lindman. That Eugene Lionheart is none other than Hamel from 300 years ago. The beings in this hellish realm who knew this truth were likely few. Perhaps only the Demon King of Incarceration and me. The Demon King probably figured it out himself. But Hamel told me in person. Even though it was just her conjecture, Noir believed it with certainty. This revelation brought her joy and excitement. The fact that Eugene Lionheart revealed his true identity was due to his trust in her. Trust. Yes, this is trust. Hamel, you know me well. And I know you. It was only natural. Noir dug deep into Hamel's dreams 300 years ago. She had delved into the depths of the man named Hamel Dynas, and she had tasted the hatred that lay buried within. That was why she fell in love. Hamel, don't worry. I will never betray our secret. Especially not to this humorless, serious man. Noir turned to look at Gavid while hiding her smile and asked, What do you think? About what? The reason the Demon King opened his audience hall for the first time in almost 100 years. The capital of Helmuth, Pandemonium. At its core stood the Demon King's fortress Babel, a skyscraper of 99 floors. From the 91st floor upward was the Demon King's palace. Its doors had not been opened even once for the last 100 years. Even Gavid, the closest aide and knight to the Demon King, had not entered the palace in these 100 years. The reason is quite obvious, said Gavid. Appointing a new bearer for the staff of incarceration? Now really? Even Edmund Kodrith received his title and Vladimir on the 90th floor, didn't he? Noir continued, and listen. Edmund, Balzac, and Amelia. All three made their contracts with the Demon King in your office on the 90th floor. But now, suddenly opening the palace for the investiture. Noir chuckled while shaking her head. And besides, although it's quite lacking by my standards, this isn't a secret ceremony, is it? Noir was correct. Whatever was taking place wasn't a secret. The palace doors had opened for the first time in a century. Present at this grand event were powerful, high-ranking demons hailing from Helmuth. The lowest rank among them was a count, though not every count had gathered here. Most of them had weathered the war 3 centuries past, garnered merits therein and lived to this day growing their power. The ones gathered here were the true demons. All demons up to rank 100 were gathered here. Ahem. Their gazes, unmasked by desire, were electrifying. Among them, violent gazes lusted not for Noir's physical form but for her power and existence. To Noir, these were trivial, yet the fervor aroused amusement in her. I dare not presume the intent of the Demon King, however. Gavid finally broke his silence. Edmund. Didn't the previous staff of incarceration meet an unsightly death? Responded Noir. He was murdered. His greed was simply too great. Or was he merely unlucky? I respected Edmund's intentions. His will to realize his ideal deserves respect, countered Gavid. Oh, really? You never thought he was too presumptuous? Asked Noir. Do not blaspheme the dead. It was the Demon King of incarceration who permitted Edmund to actualize his will, responded Gavid. He failed nonetheless. You know who killed him, don't you? Asked Noir. From a human perspective, Edmund's greed would be seen as evil. The hero would certainly see it as something that must be stopped, said Gavid. Eugene Lionheart. What are your thoughts on him? Moore asked casually. I think he's an excellent human. A man of iron will. Like Vermouth. Which is why I genuinely hope he will ascend Babel to prove his worthiness as the hero, sooner rather than later. Gavid's lips curved into a smirk as he expressed his sincerity while caressing the hilt of his sword. But Edmund's unfortunate death isn't the only event. A lot has happened this year. More serious issues have occurred this year than in the past few centuries. The brave Molan returned, the Demon King himself acknowledged the existence of the saint and the hero, the dragon demon castle fell, the staff of incarceration was murdered, and Sienna of disaster has returned, Noir interjected with a laugh. Even though it's circumstantial evidence, we can feel the truth, can't we? Raizakia was involved in Sienna Meridian's disappearance. The two disappeared. No, they went missing quite amicably. How should we interpret the return of Sienna Meridian? Did Raizakia, that foolish, greedy black lizard, die 200 years ago? If he died then, it's strange that Sienna Meridian returned only now. If they were sealed together, and Raizakia died, thus breaking the seal, that would make sense. Noir continued voicing her thoughts. Speculation, countered Gavid. I can say these words without any major worry. There's no weight of responsibility to bear. Who is the successor of Sienna Meridian? Eugene Lionheart. So then, do you think Raizakia was killed by the young hero? Gavid asked with narrowed eyes. Isn't that a possibility? Suggested Noir. Gavid laughed silently. Indeed, that may be so. That's the case. But should we mourn and pity the degradation of Raizakia to such a pitiful existence? Or should we applaud the brilliance of the young hero Eugene Lionheart? Are you going to leave him be? Asked Noir. What do you wish I would do? Noir scoffed and shook her head. It was such a predictable question. Still, she responded, of course we should leave him be. The Demon King has issued a proclamation and, to tell the truth, I'd rather wait for that young one to ripen a bit more. You're equally famished, aren't you? Asked Noir. They couldn't chase after him yet. Hamel is not yet ready. Noir could wait as long as necessary. She could wait until Hamel, until Eugene was ready. Until he, as unchanged as he was from 300 years ago, or rather with even more malice and killing intent, came to rip everything to shreds, including Noir herself. The Demon King's will was the same, Gavid muttered while looking around. 100 demons were waiting for the descent of the Demon King of incarceration. The majority of their expressions held more anticipation than boredom for this wait. The palace was being opened for the first time in 100 years. What words would the Demon King bring as he descended to personally preside over the ceremony? War. Among the demons who had lived through the age of war 300 years ago, many had fallen and lost their power due to peace, temptations, and various other reasons. But the demons here were different. They remained ferocious, starved for blood and war. Hence, they hoped the Demon King might declare war at today's ceremony. Foolish creatures, Gavid scoffed at the other demons. The Demon King of incarceration would not declare war directly. In the Night March, he had already proclaimed this fact to the kings of the continent. If one dared to guess the Demon King's intentions, The reason for opening the gates of the palace today and summoning the demons was likely a warning to the starving demons not to engage in unnecessary actions. How impudent, Noor commented with a laugh. Does she think she's the star of the day, huh? Even I came early to wait. The demons started to murmur. It was because of the woman who had just walked through the open door. She was a woman with brown skin, clad in airy clothes suitable for a dancer of Nahama. Her mouth was covered with a veil. The Black Thorn, a demon mumbled. It was the dungeon master of the desert, the Black Thorn, the Death Answerer, Amelia Merwin. She was given many nicknames, but today she would be bestowed a new title. It took some time coming from so far away, Amelia commented with a smile from behind her veil. Amelia was not the only one to enter the palace. Trailing behind her were two attendants. One was Himoria, her lips concealed behind a metallic mask and a slave collar around her neck. She glared at the surrounding demons with hostility while grinding her teeth beneath her mask. Beside Himoria was a man, his entire figure shrouded in obsidian armor. Even his visage was hidden beneath a helm. The identity of this figure was immediately known to all the demons present. He had a dense aura of death. He was a Death Knight considered to be among the strongest among the undead. However, to the demons that had experienced the era of war, a Death Knight was no threat. In those days, Death Knights were treated more like trophies created from slaying human knights or warriors, either forced into submission or corrupted. What is this? However, most demons could not bring themselves to scoff at the Death Knight. The murderous aura that the Death Knight was unabashedly radiating was truly intimidating. It was a familiar aura. Gavid cocked his head while directing his gaze at the Death Knight. The Death Knight returned the stare. With a clinking sound, the Death Knight shifted in his armor. Himoria immediately turned her startled gaze towards him, and Amelia raised her hand. You must not. But Amelia's magic bound the Death Knight in place. A scarlet glow flickered from within his helmet, but Amelia, still smiling, shook her head. You mustn't. Haha. The Death Knight let out a hollow laugh at her words. This prompted Gavid, who had been watching the scene play out, to burst into laughter. What a fascinating, no, splendid, what should I say? Toy. Pet. Commented Gavid. Knight, Amelia whispered after locking eyes with Gavid. My knight protector. Will you refrain from insulting him? It seems unwise to bring him here. Isn't your knight discomfort? Asked Gavid. He understands his situation and circumstances, countered Amelia. Make sure you hold his leash tightly. Any unnecessary commotion won't end with a simple reprimand. At these words, the Death Knight's eyes flared again. He appeared as if he were ready to charge at Gavid right there and then, but Amelia's magic kept him in check. Even so, a strong surge of bloodlust was directed at Gavid. Interesting indeed. Very entertaining. Noir too had deduced the identity of the Death Knight. Who could possibly miss this potent bloodlust? Noir knew that Hamel's soul had been reincarnated. That made the identity of this Death Knight all the more intriguing and, in a way, more exciting. Did she brainwash another soul? Or is this a projection of his memories? Either way, it's interesting. He's a fake who wholeheartedly believes himself to be real, doesn't he? It wasn't just Noir and Gavid who recognized the Death Knight's identity. Some of the demons who had lived through the times of war had seen Hamel on the battlefield. Hamel of Slaughter. Those who had survived encounters with him had done so purely due to good fortune. Hence, not only curiosity but also a strong sense of pleasure rose among the demons. Wasn't this the same human who had once wreaked havoc among demon folks? He had been thoroughly corrupted and trained into a Death Knight. Boom. The hall suddenly fell silent. An oppressive force descended from the high ceiling and silenced every demon present. Without hesitation, all the demons knelt. Gavid and Noir did the same, kneeling in the foremost positions. Amelia Mervyn felt a tingling thrill as she knelt behind Gavid and Noir. Himoria trembled, her body consumed by a massive wave of despair and fear. The Death Knight. He felt an unbearable humiliation. From the ceiling descended a shadowy staircase. It extended from the highest floor of Babel, the 99th, down to the hall on the 91st floor. Slowly, very slowly, a man with pallid skin and long black hair began to descend the staircase. Himoria barely managed to raise her eyes to take in the figure of the Demon King of Incarceration. He was beautiful beyond what one would expect of a demon king. His appearance was both eerie and seductive, as if the concepts of night and darkness had been given human form. Countless chains clanked in the wake of the demon king of incarceration, trailing down the stairs behind him. When they were gathered into a pile, they looked like a cloak. The demon king did not descend the entire staircase. Instead, he stopped midway and looked over the assembly of 100 demons. "Quite a crowd," were his first words. A crimson staff materialized when he raised his right hand. "Vladimir, the symbol of the staff of incarceration. Before I appoint a new bearer of the staff of incarceration," the demon king of incarceration said while tilting his head, "kill each other until only half of you remain." Chapter 333. The Palace 2. Kill each other until only half of you remain. The command needed no complex thoughts to decipher. Half, meaning the 100 demons assembled in this hall. Reduce that number to 50. Unless one was contemplating self-destruction, the demon king of incarceration was commanding them to kill the demons standing next to them. It was a straightforward command, yet not a single demon could grasp the sudden decree and act accordingly. Of course, this was only to be expected. The declaration of the demon king was shockingly sudden. The Palace of Babel had opened after 100 years. Today was supposed to be a gathering of the top 100 ranked demons to celebrate the appointment of the new staff of the demon king. But out of the blue, they were commanded to slay each other. Even for the bloodthirsty and violence-craving demons, comprehending this command was challenging. It deviated too far from the expected edict. Aha! Not everyone was at a loss, though. There was at least one who understood. However, her actions were delayed not because of misunderstanding but because an eerie exhilaration made her shiver in anticipation. Darkness surged beneath the feet of Noir Giabella, then elongated into a sharp spear and pierced through the forehead of a demon standing at the far end of the room. It didn't stop there. After piercing through the brain and skull, the spear expanded, opening wide like a gaping mouth. The darkness swallowed the demon whole. "What are you all doing?" Noir Giabella tasted the sweet blood in her mouth. She laughed as her lips grew redder. The demon king of incarceration himself permitted it. "Don't overthink it, 300 years. No, even before that, this was something our kind used to revel in," said Noir. Noir rose to her feet while laughing merrily. Then she casually sat down midair, crossing her legs in a sensual posture. "A massacre. A scramble for ranks disregarding all formalities. You may even consider it a territorial war. You get to claim the power, soul, territory, existence, everything of the one you kill," she continued enticingly. The scent of the dead demon's blood filled the palace. One by one the demons rose. Those who had experienced the era of wars gleamed with nostalgia in their eyes. The younger ones who hadn't experienced the era of wars gritted their teeth with ambition for the higher ranks and the fervor to directly prove their might before the demon king of incarceration. The inhuman beings began to slaughter each other. Enormous and wild surges of dark power clashed repeatedly, yet the palace did not shake at all. Even amidst the tempest of dark power raging right next to them, neither Noir Giabella nor Gavid Lindman felt so much as a fluttering breeze. "None of them have any gusto," Noir said while licking her lips, watching the massacre with disappointment. Just moments before, she had received the gazes of many filled with desire. Yet not a single demon dared approach her the moment the massacre was permitted. This too was only natural. Noir Giabella, the queen of the night demons, was second-ranked among the great demons. Even then she was considered second only because Noir did not contest with Gavid. In truth, the various demons of Helmuth believed that the queen of the night demons was the strongest of them all. No matter how thirsty for blood the demons were, they weren't foolish enough to throw themselves into a predetermined battle. "You won't participate?" Noir asked, turning to Gavid with a soft smile. He remained kneeling, showing no interest in the unfolding battle behind him. His attention was solely on the demon king of incarceration. "What reason is there for me to do so?" he countered. "Don't you want to kill me?" she asked. "I cannot say I've never considered it, but not now." "Do you desire to kill me?" asked Gavid. "I am like you. I can't say I've never had such thoughts, but not now." As she spoke, Noir raised her head. Still standing on the stairs was the demon king of incarceration. His unreadable eyes calmly looked over the battles of the many demons. The few words he had spoken had caused the 100 strongest demons to tear into each other. yet his face betrayed no trace of satisfaction or thrill. Why should he feel thrilled? If the Demon King of Incarceration wished it, he could command not only 100 demons to be slaughtered but for blood to spill across the entire continent. Why would he suddenly give such an order? Mur was curious about his reasoning. The population of Helmuth had grown excessively after the era of wars. While there were strict restrictions in place now, when Helmuth first became an empire, the Demon King of Incarceration had opened its borders and increased the populace of Helmuth through a lenient, friendly, and welfare-based immigration policy. The Demon King of Incarceration had been able to do such a thing because he was omnipotent. All the demon folks were under his control. He provided a home for many demonic beasts returning from across the continent. Using his power, he divided the land. Using his power, he transformed the sea into land. He expanded the territory of Helmuth as the population increased. He laid down dark power cables across Helmuth with his power and erected black towers to develop Helmuth further. Under this almighty ruler, Helmuth became the greatest empire in history for 300 years. It could easily fill its borders with people wanting to immigrate to this prosperous empire. The immigrants weren't only limited to those from other races either. Rather, the number of demons also increased at a rapid pace after Helmuth became an empire. The reason was simple. There were no wars and they didn't kill each other. Those who killed because of hatred, the mere desire to kill, or because they coveted what others had, were disciplined by the Demon King of Incarceration under his strict rule. Now, demons had to go through strict procedures to engage in ranking and territory disputes. And with just that, the death rate of demon folk significantly decreased. Too many in numbers? It's not like he didn't know. He was the one who made it so. What was he trying to do? Mur didn't have long to ponder as the massacre gradually settled down. Amelia Merwin remained silent, doing nothing. She was curious about the sudden slaughter taking place behind her, and it piqued her interest, but that did not mean Amelia should participate in the dance. Demons kill each other until only half of you remain. Amelia was a black wizard, but she wasn't a demon. The same was true for the Death Knight. The undead were not demons. Neither was Himoria the Chimera. You held up well, Amelia murmured in a low voice. The words were meant for the Death Knight kneeling right behind her. He was a fraud created from the projection of the body and memories of Hamel, who had died 3 centuries earlier. Yet the Death Knight believed himself to be Hamel. In the war at the Samar Forest, the Death Knight lost his body. Yet his soul didn't disappear but returned to Amelia and took residence in a new body she crafted. Now that his body, the only real thing about him, had been destroyed, nothing Hamel-like remained in him. Both his soul and memories were counterfeit. Yet the Death Knight still believed himself to be Hamel, maintained an identity like Hamel, blindly trusted his tainted memories, and harbored a counterfeit fury and hatred born from false memories of revenge. He wanted to kill the demons. He didn't want to kneel to the Demon King but wanted to kill him. While he held such desires, his revenge and hatred for his comrade's betrayal, born from the counterfeit memory, took precedence. When Amelia commanded his wavering, hesitating body, he ended up kneeling as if to console himself that it was an unavoidable choice for revenge. Damn it, damn it, damn it. He could not remain calm. The Death Knight was fuming. He felt a great rage inside him, an emotion that felt like it would drive him mad. Yet even in his rage, he found relief in the fury and humiliation of the moment. The current situation and the fact that he could feel such emotions in front of his past enemies affirmed his existence and identity. It's over, the Demon King of Incarceration said after a while. He didn't come down the stairs further as he looked around the battlefield filled with the stench of blood. 100 demons became 50 as ordered by the Demon King. Most of those who survived were the old demons from the war era, but among them stood a few young demons who had not experienced war. I will give a gift to those of you who have survived, the Demon King of Incarceration said as he descended the stairs. A part of my dark power. It's merely a gift, so it won't bind you by contract. There's no need for that. After all, every demon possessing the citizenship of Helmuth will end up in my arms upon death. Your Majesty. Gavid could not hide his surprise as he raised his head. As the Demon King of Incarceration had said, the Demon King did not need to sign a contract with the demons under his rule. That was why there was no need to provide power as compensation for a contract. Even Gavid, who possessed the demon eye of divine glory, had not directly contracted with the Demon King of Incarceration. It was merely a gift from the Demon King of Incarceration for one of his subjects. The Demon King was bestowing his power as a gift to the demons. This would elevate the status of the demons by several levels. Moreover, he was bestowing such a gift on not one but 50 demons. This was a privilege unheard of even during the war era. "It's not your power," said the Demon King of Incarceration with a smile. "It's the power that I have gifted you. Just as I freely gave it, I can freely take it back." The expressions of the demons who had been lost in glorious joy changed one by one. "You will not be able to employ my gifted powers in the clash between demons. It wouldn't be fair after all. Such battles are meant to prove one's worth through their own strength. That's how things worked with demons from a very, very long time ago." His slow steps finally reached the floor of the 91st level. In that instant, the scenery of the battlefield, strewn with blood-soaked corpses, transformed completely. However, it didn't return to the pristine state of the hall from earlier. "Ah!" Gavid trembled, letting out a moan as he took in the new sight. Even Noir licked her lips with sparkling eyes. A massive door covered with hundreds of padlocks came into view. It was the same door that led to the Demon King's chamber, the palace in the Babel of 3 centuries ago. The space, which had been filled with the brief, small traces of a massacre, now bore the marks of eons. Each etching and marking harbored an uncountable number of events. If you lose, you are stripped of your power, soul, territory, and existence. In other words, the victor gains all that the loser possessed. This law still exists in the present demon world, but we shall do away with unnecessary and tedious procedures, said the Demon King of Incarceration. How about handkerchiefs or gloves? Noir, who had been listening quietly, asked with a bright smile. Like when humans duel. With a handkerchief in your pocket, wearing gloves. Doing this every time might be somewhat bothersome. But any method would be simpler than the current one. I'll adopt that, answered the Demon King. Great. Very good. Or how about exchanging messages for a duel? We are doing that now, but preparing the paperwork for a duel is quite bothersome and it also requires separate approval. Since you mentioned abolishing procedures, we should be able to kill each other, even with just a hastily written note, continued Noir. I'll adopt that, answered the Demon King. What should determine victory is indeed life and death, right? Surrendering. How disgraceful, how shameful. Who would do such a thing? But I believe we need referees. For the ranked battles. To ensure the duels where we kill each other are fair. Your Majesty, if you ever need it, feel free to command me, Noir Giabella. There are plenty of night demons under my command. My children can perform the role of a referee without any problem. Noir lifted the hem of her skirt and bowed with a graceful pose. The Demon King of Incarceration turned his gaze away from Noir towards the demons. As I've said, the hierarchy battles will change to be simple. You who remain here have received power from me, but you cannot use my power in your own hierarchy battles or in battles with other demons currently not present. Therefore, do not become complacent. Be aware that what you currently enjoy can be taken away at any moment. The many chains dragging behind the Demon King of Incarceration coagulated to form a throne. The Demon King of Incarceration sat on the throne made of chains, supporting his chin with the back of his hand. There is bound to be confusion with sudden changes, but I do not wish for great chaos. In particular, I do not wish for the common citizens of the Empire to be bewildered and anxious. Stripping of existence means taking away the associated contracts as well. Higher-ranked demons are bound to have numerous contracts with common citizens. You are free to carry out ranked battles, but the subsequent tidying up must be done flawlessly, commanded the Demon King. I believe a mediator could handle the arrangement of contracts. If you grant me, Noir Giabella, the exclusive right to mediate, it shall be done, Noir chimed in. There was a sudden amendment to the hierarchy battle system. Until now, the role of a mediator in hierarchy battles was taken up by prestigious higher-ranked demons or officials dispatched from Babel. But in the future there would be many more hierarchy battles. Moreover, the battles would present many more considerations and consequences. In other words, the role of the mediator would become even more crucial. For hundreds of years, the most successful businessman in Helmuth had been Noir Giabella. She smelled immense profit in this new business, the mediation system. It was bound to be so since it wasn't a private enterprise but a business run directly by the Empire, by the Demon King of Incarceration himself. The Demon King of Incarceration was generous in such matters. "Prepare and submit a plan," he said. "Yes, sir." Noir bowed her head while imagining the suffocating scent of money and gold. "Let's begin the appointment ceremony." Finally, the Demon King of Incarceration's gaze landed on Amelia. Amelia knew she wouldn't be the star of this occasion, but she harbored no complaints about that. Vladimir was a staff possessed by the staff of incarceration over the generations. Honestly, Amelia had never coveted Vladimir until now. She was fully confident in her own magic and power even without such a staff. But now she desperately wanted Vladimir. More than the power of the Demon King, she was extremely curious about the memories that remained in Vladimir. Just what had transpired in the Samar rainforest. How had Edmund Kodrith failed? Amelia had a vague idea. Through the testimony of the Death Knight, she learned that Eugene Lionheart had intruded into the rainforest. However, the Death Knight had fallen too soon. She had not seen how Edmund had died. Amelia was curious about the end of the ritual. Balzac Ledbeth was said to have been present. If Balzac had pulled some trick and Edmund had noticed it, there would be clues left behind in Vladimir. Vladimir was such a staff. While the souls of all the staff of incarceration returned to the Demon King, the memories of their owners stayed with Vladimir. That wicked and ominous staff consumed blood and stored memories. "Amelia Merwin, come closer," commanded the Demon King of Incarceration. "Yes." Amelia Merwin rose. Behind her, the Death Knight flinched and Himoria held her breath. The gleam in the Death Knight's eyes was directed at the Demon King of Incarceration. Their eyes met momentarily, but the Demon King of Incarceration said nothing to the Death Knight. His eyes revealed no interest or emotion regarding the Death Knight. The Death Knight, Hamel, had never made it to the Palace of Incarceration in his previous life. He had never seen that door filled with chains and locks. He had never faced the Demon King of Incarceration directly. His decaying, dying body had been brought down not by battle but by the betrayal and ridicule of his comrades. The indifference and lack of emotion from the Demon King of Incarceration caused a profound sense of humiliation to rise within the Death Knight. "Amelia Merwin." The Demon King of Incarceration raised his hand without looking at the Death Knight. Vladimir flew towards Amelia from his side. "From today, you are the staff of incarceration." "Yes." Amelia gave a thin smile as she received Vladimir with both hands.